On one hand, we want players who fully buy into our system, but on the other hand, we absolutely need reliable depth at the most important position. A possible departure involving one of our backup quarterbacks is still an active option right now. Our assistant general manager just gave a major update regarding this lingering trade request and how our injury-prone starter changes everything. Stay until the very end of this video. Hit that like button and subscribe today. Anthony Richardson is staying in Indianapolis to compete for the backup quarterback job despite a trade request lingering from earlier this offseason. This situation places the young signal caller at a peculiar crossroads with the franchise that drafted him, forcing fans to weigh his potential against the realities of a crowded, uncertain depth chart. My assessment of the situation suggests the front office is playing a calculated game of leverage rather than rushing to fulfill a desire for an exit. Assistant General Manager Ed Dodds made the organization's current stance remarkably clear this week by stating that the team intends to keep Richardson on the roster to compete for the backup position. Now here's the thing about this roster strategy. It centers on a desire to carry 3 capable quarterbacks, and if Richardson remains one of them, he is staying put. Right now, he is locked in a direct battle with Riley Leonard for the spot behind starter Daniel Jones. By most accounts, that competition is tight, and I was honestly impressed that Richardson managed to produce a sharper outing than his peer during the team's preseason opener. Fans are understandably torn because Leonard carries hype, but possesses only one career start. And we all know Jones has never survived a full NFL campaign without injury. Keeping as many options available is simply sound management. The team is not moving Richardson just for the sake of making a transaction if the market value does not meet their specific expectations. Does this decision mean the front office truly believes in his growth, or are they waiting for a desperate team to blink? We are left wondering if that preseason performance was merely a glimpse of his ceiling, or if the trade request will continue to shadow every snap he takes during practice. Why would a front office prioritize internal competition over an immediate exit? The reality is that Indianapolis faces a volatile situation at quarterback, and Assistant General Manager Ed Dodds is choosing to maximize depth rather than rush a resolution. I see this as a classic move by a management team protecting itself against the historical fragility of the position, especially knowing Daniel Jones has never managed to play through a full season in his career. It is a pragmatic, if perhaps cold approach that values roster insurance over satisfying individual trade desires. And I'll be straight with you, this strategy relies heavily on the belief that holding 3 viable options is better than letting a potential asset go for pennies on the dollar. You have to consider that Riley Leonard remains an unproven commodity with only one career start, making the retention of another arm an logical, if not strictly necessary, hedge against future injury. While the trade request from the offseason lingers like a ghost, the team is acting as if it simply does not exist for the time being. Are they genuinely keeping him for the long haul, or are they waiting for a desperate squad to improve their offer before the deadline hits? My sense is that the front office is comfortable letting this play out because there is no tangible benefit to cutting ties prematurely. They want to ensure they have enough talent to survive the schedule, and if that means keeping a disgruntled player on the bench, so be it. The competition between the 2 backup candidates remains an active daily battle that forces everyone to perform at their absolute peak. Ultimately, they are banking on depth winning games, and they simply will not move anyone just for the sake of making a headline. So that is the specific news. Now let's get into what it actually means for the outlook of this roster. This is where it gets real because the stakes involve more than just a training camp headline. They concern the sheer viability of a franchise lacking true durability at its most pivotal position. By choosing to retain Anthony Richardson despite his request for a move, the front office is effectively betting that his potential upside outweighs the distraction of his lingering discontent. Does this decision signal a lack of faith in Riley Leonard or a calculated hedge against the injury history surrounding Daniel Jones? My take is that keeping a backup with legitimate starting experience is standard practice for any serious contender. Without that third arm, the entire season could derail in a single Sunday afternoon. Looking toward the schedule, the team clearly expects to rely on this depth chart to navigate the inevitable attrition that plagues every long campaign. If Leonard, with his solitary career start, fails to provide stability when needed, having Richardson waiting in the wings could easily be the factor that saves a playoff push. Such a move also impacts how the team matches up against their division rivals, as they now possess a secondary option who is hungry to prove his value after a sharp preseason opener. Can the coaching staff successfully integrate a player who explicitly wanted out? Or will this become a persistent locker room tension that undermines team chemistry as the season progresses? From my perspective, maintaining talent for the sake of survival is the only logical path forward, regardless of individual player preferences. This approach ensures they remain competitive, even if it forces the front office to manage an uncomfortable, yet necessary working relationship through the final weeks of the regular season. Securing depth at the quarterback position provides the Colts with the essential safety net, regardless of any lingering friction from the spring. Anthony Richardson performing better than Riley Leonard in their latest outing highlights the internal pressure this roster faces to maintain quality talent behind a starter in Daniel Jones, who has never completed a full campaign. My take is that keeping 3 capable arms, with Richardson included, is the most responsible way to prepare for a season where injury remains a constant looming threat. The part fans are not ready for is the possibility that this competition isn't just about finding a backup, but about keeping everyone hungry while the trade market remains cold. Holding on to a player who previously requested a trade invites obvious risks, particularly regarding locker room atmosphere and the potential for off-field distractions to boil over into team meetings. Critics around the league argue that a disgruntled player might dampen the energy of a room, yet the front office is betting that competition will override individual frustrations. Can Leonard, with just one career start, truly be trusted to carry the load if disaster strikes? Relying on someone so unproven is a massive gamble, which explains why the team refuses to move Richardson just to clear a roster spot. If the goal is to win, then having 2 viable candidates battling for the second team spot is objectively better than settling for a shallow depth chart. I believe the team is playing a smart game of waiting for an advantageous trade offer, while simultaneously shielding the franchise from an inevitable injury crisis. They are not merely keeping Richardson as a favor, they are protecting the investment. Does this strategy actually pay off? Or will the tension eventually stall the progress of the entire offense? This is a high-stakes balancing act. When you weigh the front office comments against the reality of the depth chart, a clear, pragmatic strategy takes shape for the Indianapolis Colts. My read on this situation is simple. The team is prioritizing organizational security over individual trade requests. Ed Dodds is essentially treating the quarterback room as a high-stakes insurance policy. Because Daniel Jones has never survived a full NFL campaign, and Riley Leonard remains an unproven commodity with only 1 career start, this roster move is a calculated decision to keep a viable option like Anthony Richardson on the payroll. And that changes everything regarding how they approach the backup competition. Does this signify a genuine long-term belief in his development, or is it merely a cold calculation to keep talent in the building?